It is my pleasure to introduce the Vice Commander of Naval Sea Systems Command, Rear Admiral John C. Orzalli.
So normally, am I on? Normally when speakers come up from DC, make some cute little comment like, it's glad to be outside of DC and avoid traffic. Coming to Philadelphia, I'm not sure that's an appropriate thing to say. Especially because when I go to work in the morning, I walk, because I live on the Washington Navy Yard. So I had a little opportunity this morning driving up from DC to experience things that not everyone gets to experience. I also wanted to add my welcome. It's great to see the McGinnis family. I was actually stationed at Portsmouth Naval Shipyard, and the family was not quite as big as it is today when I was there last century. I thought my remarks this morning should be brief, and also being second, you have to wonder about what the person before you is going to talk about, and you don't want to repeat everything. So, and I would like to add my welcome to Mr. Curry from the Naval Reactors family. We both are dependent on this activity for products that can immediately go into service, and as Captain Kim had said, in those areas that there is no margin for failure, high interest kind of systems. When coming up here, I Google Maps and all this, it got me here okay, and I did some circling around trying to find where I was supposed to park, and then I was told we don't have a band, we don't have all this other stuff, and I felt very much at home. I was in an airport in San Diego a couple of years ago, and I had just passed through security. I was in uniform, and passed through security, went to the head. Can I say that? I mean, this is a joint activity, but I went to the head, changed my clothes, and came out, and there was an individual there that was conducting a survey, and he asked me, he was doing surveys about transportation patterns. So they were trying to improve the San Diego airport. And he said, excuse me, are you an admiral? And I said, oh, yeah, well, why? He said, well, I thought so. I saw you in uniform going in to the bathroom. But I thought to myself that I just you couldn't be an admiral because you didn't have an entourage with you. And I said, well, I'm an engineering duty officer, and like Brian, as an admiral and an engineering duty officer, I'm a working admiral, not an entourage admiral. Brian, you're a working commander, not an entourage commander, and get used to it. But when I actually sat on the selecting panel that picked Brian to come up here. We, a few years ago, decided that this job was important enough to our Navy with this special material that we wanted someone wearing a shrimp fork. No laughs. Okay. If you look at the command ashore pin, which we give to those people that are in command of major shore activities and major programs, they wear a command ashore pin, and it looks like a shrimp fork. Okay, so, but we felt it important enough that we had a commander with all the rights and privileges, and even more so, the responsibility and authority and accountability that comes with command. That's what we wanted up here, and the reason we wanted it is because it's really important. As a former shipyard commander, former regional maintenance center commander twice, former fleet maintenance officer, the products that come from your organization in numbers, in quality, are absolutely essential for fleet readiness. I also know that we're going to get it right. Whether your products that you support and deliver are right or not, we're not going to send a ship to sea without the correct materials on board. So if you don't get it right the first time, it's coming back. And that's not the best way to do it for our taxpayer dollar. So Brian's got a history in process improvement. He knows the shipyards. He knows the maintenance community. He knows what it takes to get the products out. And therefore, he's going to bring that understanding, knowledge, drive, and experience to this command. And that is what we, the customer, need. Okay? So I'm not looking at this with my glasses. I can't read what's on the paper. A few years ago, I had the opportunity to review the Constitution. And I just read it again, and in fact, I was challenged to read the Constitution. Every time we take an oath, and every time you get promoted, you take an oath that you support and defend the Constitution of the United States. So I felt it important, and I even realized that civilians that work for the Department of Defense are also support and defend the Constitution. So I read in detail trying to find the Navy in our Constitution. It shows up twice. Once in the roles and responsibilities of the Commander-in-Chief. But the second one has to do with Congress' responsibility to the Navy. Conveniently, it's right after the Army. And on the Army, it says, Congress shall raise armies, plural, armies. And oh, by the way, we don't want to use any more than 2-year duration dollars when we talk about the Army. Now, I know that we've modified that a little bit. But the founders of this country recognized that when you needed an army, you bought one. But for the Navy, it was a little bit different, and that's why I think it's important at least to review it this morning. This afternoon. Okay. For the Navy, it says Congress has the responsibility and authority to provide for a Navy and maintain it. 2 parts. To me, it's right to provide and then maintain it. If you're going to buy it, you're going to maintain it. 2 things that come out of that to me. First is it's recognition that it's a major capital investment and you can't throw money at it when you need it. And the second piece is that when we buy our ships and those weapon systems that are on the ships, we need to make sure that they will last for that lifetime. How's that come back to you? The quality of those products that go into our ships has to last. Not interested in something that has a high failure rate. Not interested in something that we keep lots of them on the shelf because the parts are cheap and we'll just replace them. Because that replacement is not always the cheapest way to go. So the story that I've been telling is we, in the material side, also have to look at total ownership cost. Shortly after I transitioned to the engineering duty community, I also came from the submarine force where the tradition of our nuclear-powered ships' attention to detail was something that Brian is bringing to this job. But as I transitioned, there was a significant change in compensation when you go ashore from being in a submarine where you had submarine pay, sea pay, nuclear incentive, and we also had 3 children, and we were just starting in our tour as an engineering duty officer. And I came home from work one day, and we quite literally were living paycheck to paycheck. So I came home from work one day, and my wife said, "Guess what I bought?" I said, "Well, where'd you go shopping?" She said, "Well, I didn't go anywhere." And this is before eBay, this is before the internet. And she said, "Well, a guy came to the door." And I'm not real excited about where the story is going. And he threw dirt on the floor. Wow. So in 1994, when I'm living paycheck to paycheck, my wife purchased a vacuum cleaner for $1,700. Best investment we have made. It's the vacuum cleaner I use today because it was built with high quality, with simple parts, and it was built to last. That's what we need, because it reduced the total ownership cost. So from this activity, I'm looking for high quality parts, built to last, proper documentation so that we can track it throughout our systems, because we rely on documentation to ensure that everything within those systems perform. Proper packaging when it gets to the delivery point needs to be a full up round, ready to be installed. Yes, we'll check it to make sure that it's not been damaged in shipment, but it's got to be ready to put into the system. That's the way that we reduce the cost of owning and operating our Navy, that which is a responsibility of the Constitution that we have all sworn to uphold and defend. So if you remember anything today, two things. First is that what you do is very, very important. And even though you're not inside DC, we're watching from inside DC and how well you're doing. The second piece is that we have to look at this long term from a what's it cost, not only for the material that you're producing, but what the associated costs are with it when it gets installed. Because if it's not right and we can't install it when we want to install it, then we have a lot of people standing around and waiting. And the last one, and I always have to say this, is listen to your spouse. Right? Because my wife had the right answer, even though it took me a few years to recognize that that was the right answer. I'm going to turn it over to Brian. Brian's got the words of wisdom and your charge for the way ahead. But I want to give him something before he starts. I'm trying to figure out the seating in the room here. It's not a wedding, right? So this is not the groom side, this is not the bride side, but this side seems to be more populated. Now, if I was in church, that would say they don't want to hear the sermon because they're not in front of the podium. Right? But that's not why we're here today. So I am looking for zealots. I have a personal mission to find zealots, and those zealots are people that get waste out of our processes. Okay? And when I catch somebody taking waste out of the process, I acknowledge that and reward it. So I'm giving Captain McGinnis an IOU, and it is a coin that says that he's a zealot. Now I know from his past experiences that he understands what I'm talking about. But the coin said it's got process improvement piece. It talks about customer value. And customer value, you know, is that something that the customer wants to pay for, and something that changes form, fit, or function. So customer value. And around the outside, it says our resident zealot applying lean lessons immediately. Our resident zealot applying lean lessons immediately. Make that into an acronym and check your program, maybe somebody's name that's speaking. But Brian, if you'd come up as I turn over the podium to you, I'm challenging you to get the waste out of the process. Thank you, sir. So with that, I'll turn it over to Brian. I really appreciate being here, and have a great Navy Day.